Welcome, everyone. I was in a less positive mood. It's been a really long year of Zoom classes and Zoom meetings, and I think most of us are feeling kind of isolated from friends, classmates, extended family. However, the regular academic year is almost over. It's week 9, and it looks like we will, I shouldn't even say looks like, we're going to be back to normal in the fall. And that's really exciting to me, and something that I am absolutely looking forward to, not only because that means that my kids will also be back in school, but it's been, just personally, it's been really hard. And I know that there are lots of other people that are feeling the same way. And so certainly we're looking forward to that for fall 2021. Today, May 25th, marks 1 year since George Floyd was murdered by Minneapolis police. It's also been a really long year of continued violence against Blacks, Asians, and other represented groups within our society, and a long year of continued inequity. So I was thinking maybe we could just take a moment to remember and pause and reflect. Again, as I was reflecting about this, as I was sort of thinking about this meeting, I think the violence that we've seen and the inequity that we've seen reminds us how important our efforts are to advance JEDI issues within CEE, within UW, within our professions and our communities. So thank you, everybody. In particular, our JEDI committee and all of those, all of you who have really engaged and been helping to advance those activities within the department. It's really, really important, and everything that we do that can advance that is helpful and valued. So thank you. Thanks for joining the town hall today. In particular, we've got a presentation about some of the things that have happened over the last quarter, and then we're going to end with some breakout sessions to think about priorities for the coming year. And I just wanted to note that moving forward, we're going to, for the 2021-22 academic year, we're going to schedule these town hall meetings in advance once a quarter so that everybody can schedule around them, and everybody will have an opportunity to participate. And that's about it. Good luck with the last couple of weeks of school, and thank you so much for being here. I'm going to pass it off now to Ted, I think, is going to start us on a poll everywhere poll, and then, which is again, just to kind of take a sense of what the climate is and how people are feeling today. And then Julian and Jessica are going to finish out and send us off to these breakout sessions at the very end. So stick around to the end.
Okay, so I believe I put the link in the chat, and you should be able to click it and begin responding to the poll.
So last time we were almost uniformly distributed between graduate students, undergrads, faculty, and staff. So we'll see how we do this time.
Should I go to the next one now? It looks like we're...
Yeah, is there anybody who hasn't been able to respond? Okay.
There's 10 people who haven't responded. I don't know. Is there anybody who can't get the link?
May just be non-responders. So
Oh yeah, someone asked. Here, I'll send it again. Oops.
Okay, looks like the graduate students are beating the undergraduate students this time.
okay, I think I'll go to the next one.
Yeah.
If that works. Note that you can select as many here as you want. It's not like the last one.
Okay, looks like there are a lot of tired and exhausted people. It is the 9th week of the quarter, so perhaps that's not that surprising. But then the next one is hopeful, so. I think you can probably go to the next one, Ted. When we did this about this time last year, we were at most people disagreed. So I think we've made a lot of progress, but obviously we've got a long way still to go.
Should I go to the next one or?
Yeah, it looks like we're done. Okay, I'm going to say we're done. Oh, again, when we did this time last year, we had 19 people say very unwelcoming and 35 say generally welcoming or say generally unwelcoming. So we were really we were at the unwelcome side. It's absolutely wonderful to see that we're generally welcoming and that there isn't anybody saying very unwelcoming. That's wonderful. Do you want to go to the next one?
Sure. Oh, I think that was the last one.
Yes, it was according to my presentation as well, or according to what we had.
One thing I just want to mention, the numbers, we can't compare exact based on who is here this time versus who is here at that last time. So I think it's both a representation of who can join us today as well as maybe progress we've made.
Thanks, Ted. Good point.
I wonder if the sample size has changed.
The sample size has certainly changed, but and so when I'm kind of looking at the plots that I'm just looking at the distributions.
Okay, we have the survey results, which has a larger sample size, and Erkan, I'll show those in just a minute.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Julian.
So we're going to turn to the students next. There are 3 students. We've done, Laura? I'm sorry.
Yes, I am finished. Thank you.
So the next thing on our agenda was to turn to the student groups. Let me, they have a presentation. And we'll start with the USAB. I believe Addie is presenting this.
Yes. Hi. So I'm Adi, they, them. I believe almost everybody here has probably met me in some capacity or another, but I'm the chair of USAB for this year. We are the USAB, or the Undergraduate Student Advisory Board, are the representative voice for the undergraduates and formed this past January. We just finished up an application cycle, bringing in some new folks for the upcoming year. And we'll have another cycle in the fall as well. But we sit on the JEDI and the undergraduate education committees and do our best to represent undergrad voices in those capacities. Thanks. You can reach us at ceeusab@uw.edu. I'll drop that email in the chat.
Okay, I guess I'm up. I'm Mike Jones. I'm in the environmental engineering professional master's program in my last couple of weeks here. And I'm a member of the GSAB committee, and I sit on the GSAB board, and I sit on the JEDI committee. So I just wanted to introduce the GSAB briefly, and there is a link to our website that should be in the chat, and I encourage everyone to go check that out. You'll see our mission statement on there. You can kind of read what we're about. And similar to, as Audie said, we're recruiting for the fall quarter. We're looking for 3 new members. And on our website, you'll see a form where you can nominate someone else, or you can apply to be on the GSAB yourself. And then lastly, on our website, you'll also find a feedback form, and our email is there as well, so that you all can connect with us. We are here to represent the student body, and we would really love to hear from you. So thanks.
Mike and Audie, thanks so much for that. And just mentioning to aid with those recruitment efforts, that there is a small stipend available from the department for everybody who sits on these committees. So there's reasons even beyond making a positive contribution to sign up and get involved.
Yeah, hi, I'm Stephen Pestana. I'm a grad student in hydrology, and I can speak on behalf of CAP. So we're CEE Action Planning. We're a group of undergrads, grads, postdocs, and alumni from the department. We formed after the listening session last year, recognizing that creating a more equitable and inclusive department and a university community is going to be everyone's responsibility. This past year, we've built relationships with student groups across the College of Engineering and university as a whole, because we know that building bridges is how we're all going to move forward. We're not experts in racial justice or activism. Rather, we're just a community of peers doing our best to engage, learn, and create change together. You're all more than welcome to join. Our next meeting is going to be on June 7th at 4 p.m. Pacific. So come take a break between finals or studying for finals then. You can follow the link on this slide or email us, and I can drop those links in the chat as well.
Okay, great. Thanks. And yeah, just to repeat, the first 2 groups are kind of advising the department. Those are paid positions or the stipend associated with them, and we definitely really value the impact, the input that we get from them. And so if you're at all interested, please reach out since they're recruiting right now. Okay, great. Thanks again, everybody, for being here. The next things we want to do is I'm going to share some survey results. So many people fill out a survey, and I'll share some results there. And then Jessica Kaminsky is going to go through kind of an update on what we're doing in the department, mostly led by what's on the website. And then we've got some questions and interactions from you all. So with that, let me turn to the survey. And thanks everybody for reading the survey and filling out the survey. You know, it's a really important way to get feedback and to have a sense of kind of where the pulse is of the department, what the culture is of the department. We just did the poll everywhere, and this listening session and the conversations that happen here in the town hall are important. And the survey will also be an important way to hear from you all. So I just have a few slides here, not a lot. The first one is who filled out the survey. This one had 95 responses. The other ones had slightly different number, 97, I think, on the next slide. So that's a relatively large number. I think it's, you could think about there's potentially selection bias, but it's a large number and it's a statistically significant number. As you can see here, it's representative of our community. So there's a lot of undergrads and grad students, and then smaller numbers of staff and faculty who fill out the survey. And since there's not quite 100, the exact number is, you know, not so different from this percentage here. So I'll just go through the questions here. Overall, I'm comfortable with climate and CEE. And this was on a 1 to 5 scale between strongly agree, neutral, and strongly disagree, the scale that you just did on the poll everywhere. You can see kind of the majority of people here on the left, and then, you know, maybe what, a fifth, and less than a fifth over here on the right. The second question was, I believe CE has a safe and inclusive environment for all, including minority groups, and we listed important examples there. So here we have, I guess, half of the people responded with a strongly agree or agree, then a little more than a quarter are here, and not quite a quarter disagree. So, you know, I guess I would give a similar context to what Laura gave. I think there's some good news to be seen in these two slides, and also recognition that we still have a ways to go for talking about the people who are on the right side of this. Two other questions. Students help each other succeed in CEE. And again, here you have a majority, well, you have the numbers here. And then lastly, my experience in CEE contributes to my sense of belonging in engineering. And these are the results from that. Okay, a few more. I believe the following groups within CE welcome discussing issues related to and several topics. And we have professors and instructors, staff and students, the same scale of 5. So strongly agree, agree, neutral in the middle, disagree, and strongly disagree. And you can see the breakdown here for professors and instructors, and then staff and students. So there's a small, and as you go from left to right, a diminishing number who disagree or strongly disagree. In CE, I feel valued and respected by, and then the same groups. That's a reasonably positive response. Look at this. And then the last one was about, I've experienced microaggressions from, and then each of these groups, and we give kind of the definition of what microaggressions are. There was a website there from the UW Center for Teaching and Learning, which is a great website. So in this case, strongly disagree is the more positive. That's sort of like what you're going for, is people who disagree. Here, there's a substantial number of people who, you know, strongly agree or agree that they have experienced microaggressions from professors and instructors, less so from staff, and actually more so for students. And so when we think about what are some important areas that we want to think about addressing and working on and improving on, I think this question definitely highlights the need to think more about and act more on the issue of microaggressions, both from people representing the department, professors and instructors and staff, and then also students as well. This is an issue that I feel that the survey kind of highlights the need to discuss this as coming from the department, yes, but not only from the department, also from fellow students.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
So, did we collect demographics for the respondents to see how responses varied across different groups?
Yes, we have that. And I have started going through, so I'm right now kind of the one person with access to that, just to keep the survey anonymous and confidential. I have started to look by kind of demographic group, and I just started. So the survey was last week. It was supposed to close on Wednesday. I left it open for a couple more days just to get a few more responses, and that actually worked well. That we got more responses. So I closed it Sunday. Yesterday, I did kind of a first pass through, and there's more work that could be done. There's not a strong signal from kind of the way I looked at it so far. There are not large differences, but I guess I'd say there's still more work to be done. I've just kind of, that's based on my first pass of what I could do briefly yesterday.
Thanks.
But I think that's an important question. this topic of discussing issues with regards to like the department, professors and instructors and staff, and then also students, that came up in the short answer question. So right there, so that concludes all of the questions we asked, for which there were numerical answers, and then there were multiple open-ended questions. So, and there are a lot
Julian,
of responses.
there was a question in the chat if those were percentages or count data.
Were they percentages or count data was the question?
Yeah, on your vertical axis.
Counts, but since the number of, well, it doesn't show the number of responses, but the number of responses was generally about 97 per question. And so that's nearly 100, so it's nearly the same. But these are counts, I believe. These are numbers. Yeah, thanks for that. Other questions? So then there were multiple open-ended questions, and we have like pages and pages of comments, and I've read through them multiple times. And I really want to say, thank you so much to everybody for all of your comments. I really, really appreciate the thoughtfulness behind them. I haven't done a formal analysis with them. I read them a bit as they came in. I read them kind of every couple of days, and then I read them a couple of times in whole once the survey was closed. What I did here is I kind of kept a list of like the ones that I saw appearing multiple times. And so this is a representation of themes or common comments. The first three were kind of about what's happening. So CEE is making progress. Thank you. The changes that are needed are long-term. Please keep at it. Please keep going. Please do more to further the JEDI goals in our department. And so thanks for that response. And that's a really important one, and one we will take to heart. There was a lot of comments about the 2 new classes. So this quarter, there's CE for JEDI is a 1-credit class that I'm leading. And then there's a environment, engineering and justice class that Khalid Kadir is teaching. And then multiple classes have included increasing amounts of JEDI content in the classes. And you all commented on that quite a bit. Mostly it was really supportive of those changes, really, really supportive, and wanting to see more changes in that direction. There were requests to provide JEDI training for students also. We've started to do this for faculty and staff. That was a suggestion. And then, kind of keeping the communications open. So keeping the town halls going, which we will do as you heard already, and we'll set the dates in advance for the ones that come next year. The drop-in time, so Jessica Kaminsky and I have drop-in time slots each week, and it's not up here, but we also have an anonymous feedback form, so that's on the JEDI website as well, and so there's support for keeping those lines of communication open. So I will stop there, unless anybody wants to add anything, or if not, any questions, turn over to Jessica. Yeah, Laura?
I'll add one thing. As you all know, the College of Engineering has hired a new Associate Dean for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion. Her name is Karen Thomas Brown, and she's been going around the departments and talking with chairs, and then I think she'll probably circle back and talk with JEDI leadership within various departments in the college. I happened to talk with her this morning, and the idea of training for students and staff and faculty is really high on her list, and she's looking to implement some of that hopefully as early as the fall of next year, but those are issues that are high on her list of things to accomplish.
So with that, I'm going to start sharing our website, which will talk about things we have been doing recently, things we've accomplished. Stop me for questions if I skate over something too fast. So I'm sure I hope you've all seen this website. It's brand new this year, updated every quarter. Here's the website. Of course, you can certainly navigate there as well. Right here through the About link, you can find it pretty easily. You will find there, for examples, certainly statements regarding JEDI and civil engineering, also membership. terms of the professors who are on our JEDI committees, the leadership there, that does turn over somewhat every year. Similarly, the graduate student advisory board and the undergraduate student advisory board representatives. So you can always get in touch with people. If you can't remember who to reach out to, just come to the website, it has that information. We also link to this bias incident reporting tool through the college. That is an option for you if you experience or observe bias, you can report it there. That is fully outside of the department, so that, you know, if that makes you feel more comfortable, please feel free to take care of that or take advantage of that resource. So here are some of the things that we have been doing, right? And again, we're updating this at least quarterly. Here's the drop-in sessions that Julian mentioned. He and I host these weekly. The time here is still posted during spring. Although many of you will be gone over the summer, we do recognize that not all of you will be gone over the summer. And whether or not you are gone, we are going to keep these running over summer quarter. So feel free to come and talk to us. It's always nice to have a chance to chat, as well as, you know, never nice to hear of issues, but we need to know so that we can address things and make things better. So I really appreciate everybody who comes to those. And we will update the schedule with the summer quarter plan as soon as we have that hammered out. So below there, we have drop-down menus, right? If you come to the website, it will just be 3 points. If you expand them, you'll find lots of good information. So for example, almost exactly a year ago, we received a petition from many of the folks on this call asking for modifications to the way teaching evaluations were done in our department. We were able to get this taken up by the College of Engineering. That is now rolled out college-wide for most courses. So that's a really exciting change. And I understand our new dean, associate dean, may be pursuing further changes yet, which we'll keep tabs on. For graduate students, because of COVID, we made GRE scores optional in 2020 and 2021. And then our graduate education committee is studying the possibility of making that a permanent change, recognizing some inherent equity issues in that form of standardized testing. In a small but I think important change, at each faculty meeting now, we have a JEDI moment where a member of our community shares brief update on something that's going on, or a tool or technique or change that they have found meaningful. Just to keep us all thinking, right? This is continuous change when it's not like we're done. So it's a reminder of that at regular intervals. Bathrooms, we have heard from all of you, right? The bathrooms in Moore Hall are unacceptable. It's 2021 after all, and I am so thankful to Laura and Ted both, and Pedro Arduino as well, for really pursuing this issue. We do now expect construction, at least some construction, to be completed by the time everyone's back on campus in the fall. We may not have solved all of it yet, but like significant construction, good changes to the bathrooms for all the feedback we've gotten from all of you on preferred alternatives. So again, if you want more details on that, come on by the drop-in hours, or even ask when we have our Q&A session a little later today. We are still working on JEDI metrics, sort of finding demographics for our student body and staff and faculty as well. Even at the university level, there's new data being compiled. We've been pursuing family-friendly promotion and tenure, right, for our faculty members, particularly women who are parents and caregivers. Certainly there's been a large load with that with COVID in the recent years. That is in progress as well, again, at the college level. So these things we're doing in CEE are really having a wide impact, which is really nice to see. Microaggressions, you just heard some of the first cut of the data that we collected about microaggressions and where they're happening in our department. Julian spoke about that. Clearly, there's a lot more analysis that needs to happen on that survey. Julian had just a day, and because of anonymity, we promised other people would not help him with that analysis. So that will take some time, but it is going forward. And just would like to add my thanks to everyone who took the time to respond. That's important for us to know and to address. In our classes, we've added content in many courses. We also have new courses, right? Both of which were also petition items. Another thing that I hope is visible, but maybe less visible, is that not only are we changing the content of our courses, but we're changing the way we teach, pursuing more inclusive teaching practices throughout the department. And just recently in April, we had a workshop on that from the UW Center of Teaching and Learning for Inclusive Teaching Techniques, very well attended by our faculty, and we intend to have more of those in the coming year. We are also exploring the idea of a graduate certificate, looking at social justice and engineering. We're still looking at the viability of that, but if it's something you're excited about and might consider doing, it would be helpful for us to know that, right? We have to convince the university that there are people who would enroll in courses like that and a certificate like that before we can promote it. We have weekly action accountability sessions, right, where we do work, right? We not only talk about JEDI issues, but we try to actually take action and move things forward. We try hard to do that informed by our community, right? By all of you and everyone in our department. So this is our third group meeting. And as you've heard a few times, we're going to continue to do this quarterly. We'll schedule it in advance. And, you know, with particular apologies this time to much of our junior class who had a course conflict that we just couldn't avoid. But the results of the listening sessions are here. We'll continue to do that at Town Hall. So both Zoom recordings of the meetings and also the poll everywhere results. And I think a number of times people have had trouble finding these. So we may sort of revisit the organization on the website. We certainly continue with training. We've done a fair bit of that this year. We had a 3-day training session earlier this year. In addition to the inclusive teaching, we're going to continue to do that moving forward. What else can you do, right? We have other resources here as well, recommended readings, organizations, scholarship opportunities, service groups. Here's the anonymous feedback form that Julian mentioned, right? If you want to tell us something, you can do so here. You can certainly email or call Julian or I directly. You can come by the drop-in sessions. If you're not comfortable with, you know, letting us know who you are, or you don't want a conversation, you just want to tell us something, you can always use this form as well. It is anonymous. We do not see who submits it. That means we cannot follow up with you because we don't know who you are. But it is valuable information. We do see those and we do keep tabs on them. So for example, we've gotten 2 responses in the past month, which we're discussing and considering as we're doing our programming. And then finally, so that you can keep tabs, and again, for accountability, you'll see some activities that we've completed: movie screenings, promotion and tenure criteria, pandemic caregiving support, website updates, Cajitas project, nice things that we've sort of finished. Also archives, so that you can see what we have posted in the past and keep us accountable to what we need to be doing, and that we do what we say we will. So I'm happy to pause while we have questions at the end. If anyone has a really burning question. Oh, the book club, can we hear more about that? Yeah, so we have a number of book clubs going on in the department. You may remember we sent around emails to everybody in winter quarter about that. We've continued in spring quarter for faculty, and I believe the staff also have a reading group. Yeah, thanks, Todd. We have not done that. We have not organized that at the student level, although I believe CAP has some conversations as well about readings, and possibly the student advisory committees as well. But again, if that's something that, you know, being involved in those reading groups, if that's something that, you know, many of you want, please let us know, and it's something we can try to make happen next year. So with that, we're sort of finishing the portion of the town hall where we're talking at you, and we're hoping to put you all to work to consider a very important question, which I'm going to put here in the chat. What should we do What do you think we should do to advance Jedi next year? What should our priorities be? So to do this, the plan is that we're going to ask each of you to spend 2 minutes individually brainstorming and thinking what your answers to those questions are. Then we're going to go into breakout rooms of about 5 people, randomly selected for 10 minutes. And we're going to ask you to put your ideas in a Google Sheet, which I'm not going to give you yet, because we're going to start with the individual thinking, but that's going to come. And then we're going to come back and ask people to vote across all the different groups for all the ideas that are generated. So I just want to start with ground rules for those breakout rooms, right? Of course, we want to respect each other's voices. We want to be sure that everyone is heard. So if you find yourself talking a lot, which is something that happens to me, try to pause and make sure that there's space for everyone, even inviting other people to speak. You don't have to convince each other. It's okay if you disagree. The goal is to hear lots of good ideas, right? And so you can list conflicting ideas within your group, totally fine, right? This is a brainstorming session. So with that, I'm going to put 2 minutes on the clock, and yes, we're really going to sit here in silence for 2 minutes, and it might be painful if you're not thinking, but you're all going to be thinking, so it will pass in a flash. So 2 minutes on the clock. Even please really write down ideas if you have paper or pencil, or type on your computer. So 2 minutes. What should our community do to advance Jedi issues next year? All right. So my timer tells me 2 minutes has passed. Hopefully you didn't have nearly enough time to write down all your good ideas because you're about to have more time. It's amazing, like we planned it that way, right? So we're going to put everybody into breakout rooms. Again, there'll be about 5 people. You are going to get, let me put it in the chat, put this here so everybody can open this up. Everybody should please navigate to the Google Sheet that I just put in the chat window. When you get there, you are going to see a series of groups. Whatever your breakout group number is the group that you are a part of. So please write your ideas in that Google Sheet. You'll notice that we've only put 10 spaces for 10 ideas in that Google Sheet. If you have more than that, fabulous, but to prevent the sheet from like jumping around insanely for everybody, if you have more than 10, please put your ideas at the very bottom rather than inserting rows. The first part of what we're doing is writing ideas. You'll see a column for that, also a column for any notes that you want to make about the idea. Later, we're going to do column D, which involves voting. But please don't do that yet. And Julian will explain the fancy thing that he's set up to try to do that efficiently. So with that, let's please open the breakout rooms. You should all get an invitation. Join those. You've got 10 minutes on the clock. Please give us some great ideas.
Thanks everyone for typing in your ideas. We're gonna vote. And the way the voting works is think about like, what's the one or so, main idea that you think we should focus on, or that you think this row should be an idea for something we really should focus on. I'm sure all the ideas are good ideas. Thanks everyone for putting your ideas down. What's kind of the small number that we should focus on. So it's by group, of course, just so everyone doesn't start in the same place. Why don't you go where your group is, start with the next group down, then just keep going down, then come back up to the top. And then each person is kind of looking at a different place. In the row where it says vote, so that would mean you want to have approximately one or so votes per team. So within each group, pull out the one or so kind of like really best idea you think we should focus on, and put an asterisk in column D, D like dog. Don't mess with column E. Column E is just going to add up the number of asterisks. So just put an asterisk in there. If someone else is editing that cell, then just wait a second and come back to it later. When you're done editing a cell, hit enter and move on to a different cell so someone else can add there. So just, again, vote. You're on your honor to put only one asterisk per row and to put approximately one or so asterisks per group.
Lottie, did you have a question?
Yeah, could you please like share your screen and show what you're exactly talking about? I'm not certain exactly where you are. Yeah.
Sure. I will share my screen. So and let me close, if I can close this to get this out of the way. So vote in column, it's been hidden on my screen, D, like dog. So for example, the one up here, like there's 3 asterisks here. This is it's in yellow, thank you. So the example row, there's 3 votes there, which would mean 3 people went in, each person put in 1 asterisk. So only put in 1 asterisk per row and pick approximately 1 idea per group. Does that make sense, Addie? That help? So like in group 1, if I liked idea number 1 the best, then I'd go and edit cell D7. I put 1 asterisk in cell D7 and hit enter and then move on to something else.
Thank you. Michelle asked in the chat, we get a single vote per group block.
You get 1 vote per row for sure. So if you see one idea you like, please don't put multiple asterisks by that one idea, because you as an individual represent just one person's opinion. So you only get 1 asterisk per row. And just in order to like upvote the best ideas, because I'm sure a lot of ideas are really good here, approximately 1 per group. So if you see 2 ideas in the group, then that's okay, but try to kind of find the one idea. Now Jessica's laughing at me because she's gonna say that's too wishy-washy, but I know that it's really hard sometimes to like pick out the one. So it's approximately 1 per group, but definitely only 1 per row.
Julian, we might want to make sure that people aren't deleting existing asterisks in the process of adding their own.
Okay, when you go to a cell, look at the number of asterisks, when you enter the cell, make sure there's one more asterisk there when you have left than when you entered the cell. And if you can, keep your cursor like not in column D, and then just kind of like go in, make your edit and come out of column D.
Next year, we'll all be in a room and we'll have sticky notes. It'll be much easier.
If anybody has any other ideas to modify this right now, let me know. But you can see when someone's editing, so just give them a second to edit, add your asterisk, and then move to a different cell. It's kind of like if you want to put your sticky note up on the wall, you have to wait till like someone has put their sticky note up, and then they like walk away and leave a little space for you to like move in and add your vote. Except it's all virtual. So much for being here and for sharing these great thoughts. Really, really appreciate it.
So that's our 10 minutes. And with that, we're going to move into a sort of open question and answer session. Julian, did you want to speak about the mechanics of that, or did you want me to?
No, go ahead.
All right, so we welcome any and all questions, of course. You've got certainly Laura and Julian and I here, but there are others here as well who maybe can share their knowledge if you have a question for them. We're open to whatever way you feel most comfortable communicating. So you can type something in the chat, you can unmute yourself, you can just tell us in the chat that you would like to unmute yourself, you can raise your hand. We're watching everything to try to keep an eye on it. So any questions, we would love to hear them.
And while people are thinking about questions, again, yeah, you can ask them out or chat them in. We'll also just say thanks to everybody who has worked on these topics. It's not just the people we've heard from today. Many of you are doing this unannounced or unthanked, kind of in the background as well. There are several student leaders, there are several people on the JEDI committee, et cetera. And so we just want to express our gratitude and appreciation for everyone's efforts to make CEE a more inclusive community.
Thanks for the note about Theater for Change. It looks like a really amazing program.
So to Adi and Mike and others on the call, also CAP representation as well. If I were a student and I am just so excited about joining those groups and representing my community next year, what was it again that I should do?
Great question, Jessica. I'll drop the link to our website again. I think that's the best way to get in touch with us.
We will have forms up soon at that location. And I believe Adi can speak to the undergrads whose forms are available for those who want to apply. That said, I think, so I do have a question. Looking through, this list of ideas and also kind of looking back at the student petition from a year ago, in which things like specific goals. And I guess tying it back to some of the responses that you noted in the survey, this recognition that JEDI is a long-term, pretty labor-intensive effort. I mean, looking at the suggestions that have gotten a lot of votes here today, we're talking about curriculum overhauls, course additions, course content changes, but what I keep hearing is, having us come to events like this, or placing kind of the onus on individual professors and students to basically come up with ways to overhaul the entire system and full-blown proposals to do that without any clear, it doesn't seem clear to me that those proposals will be enacted. So what I'm starting to see, or what's appearing to me when I look at this, is a very unsustainable structure in order to make these changes, or to even lay the groundwork for them. So my question is, what is the leadership going to look like in terms of setting clear goals, long-term goals for changes that will be made, so that the associated support, whether that's, what does it look like from a tenure perspective, or what are the expectations for professors and graduate students who are very actively engaged in these efforts, and how are they going to have their expectations of their time commitments in other spaces shifted in order to facilitate and make it possible for these massive changes to occur. Because kind of what I've been hearing, or what I am concerned is going to happen, is we are collectively going to ask for this massive labor-intensive effort, and it's going to fall on a few professors who are passionate and who are willing to give their time, but might get in over their heads in the process, and students, place them in a similar position when this is a systemic issue that needs to be addressed.
So maybe I can start by responding to that. There was a lot there, so I'm not going to be able to hit on everything. So I think part of the reason that it feels a little ad hoc right now is that I think the JEDI committee as well has been doing a bit of has been working on the understanding that soon, and this has happened, we would have leadership at the college level, and that there would be some college support, especially around student courses for all the College of Engineering students, and some training at the freshman and sophomore level for College of Engineering undergraduates, and then something that would be cross-department at the graduate level as well. And so part of the reason is that we've been kind of stalling to wait for the college to kind of catch up, and it's going to take a while with this new associate dean for her to have a plan of what the college is going to commit to. And as I said, she's going around and talking to department chairs and finding out what's important to departments, and it's just going to take her a little bit of time to sort of figure out what the college plan is. So I think that's one level of support that we'll be able to draw on in the coming years that will be sustainable. And the college really, in my mind, does seem like the college is committed to doing that. At the department level, some of what we've done, I think, is sustainable, and we're trying to build that out a little bit more. When I look at, say, the course that Khalid Kadir is teaching, we've asked him to teach that for the next 3 years, and I think we will find a way to continue teaching classes like that. One way to make it more sustainable, also in terms of adding content, curricular content, is to ask individual instructors to add little pieces. So you're not asking, we may have a couple of overarching classes, but then you're asking individuals to do a little bit, and they can add on that little bit and build on that little bit the next year and add a little bit to another class the next year. And so that is sort of a step-by-step approach that is reasonably sustainable because you're not asking anybody to do a huge amount every single year. So those are some of my thoughts towards what your question was. I'm sure others have them as well. I have felt that I need to know what the college is going to commit to and have that conversation with the college so we can figure out what we need to add at the department level. And we've done something of taken some initial steps, but we're still at the point of what is our long-term strategic plan and how does that relate to the college's plan?
It's a fair question. I mean, it's a question, but it's also a comment. And I think, some of the things that have been made, sustainability it's inherently unsustainable. Like a change to the teaching evaluations, that's, a permanent-ish change going forward. Doing the bathrooms, which is a major renovation, like that's just a permanent change. And so the issue of sustainability isn't really kind of a part of some of the changes that have been made. They're just changes that have been made, and they're, permanent-ish, whatever that means. The first listening session was approximately a year ago. And so work began in earnest really this academic year. And there was some stuff that happened in the last academic year, but a lot of it happened this academic year. I think the main goals were to get a sense of where things are, get a sense of, what we need to do, what need to change, where some low-hanging fruit. And so a lot of the changes have been made this year with a mind towards doing what we can do now. And I think your question is well placed for thinking about next year. Okay, what are the changes we can make that is kind of in a more sustainable manner, as opposed to we need to do this and so let's go do this. So I appreciate the question. I mean, I think it's kind of more of a point than a question, but I really appreciate it.
One thing I want to add to that is just something that makes something sustainable is putting money behind it. And this department has now put money behind this effort, appointed associate chairs to lead it, rather than asking people to volunteer, paying students as well the small stipend for their contributions. The money we've put up to bring in a trainer to work with the faculty and staff, all of those things must continue, but those are also the things that make it sustainable, because if you continue to do it on a volunteer basis, then that's where these things don't continue on.
There's another major shift that no one's talked about today, which is that we're having people interview for a new faculty job. And so only one candidate has come. I hope people who are engaged in JEDI topics will engage in that and see, who's coming and offer your voice into that process. But
How do you see? Oh, sorry, Julie.
That's okay. If you saw the job announcement, JEDI topics are part of that description. Yeah, sorry, Adi.
No worries. One thing I wanted to add on to Elisa's comment. I've heard a lot from undergraduates as well as graduates working with undergraduates that there's a bit of strain of adding JEDI content to different courses, of getting a lot of things that are repetitive, of people having to go through the same trainings and modules for the same thing when they just got that or already fairly familiar with that. So it's kind of wanted to also ask about any efforts to then coordinate curriculum across courses, especially as I believe with the ABET requirements. I can't remember if it's ABET or at least JEDI requirements they're trying to go forward of having the saying that students from CEE UW are graduating with this understanding.
Okay, I'll take that one. Thank you. I'm not sure that I was, I guess I'm not surprised to hear that, but that is the first time that I've heard that there's some redundancy. And we've got a couple of different, we've got an undergrad education and grad education committee. So those are the obvious places to start tracking what people are doing and trying to provide more content rather than the same content over and over again. Your point about ABET is really interesting. And I have not heard discussions of changes to ABET to incorporate some of this content. But I will, I certainly have an opportunity to engage with that group a little bit. So I will make sure that that gets discussed at our next nationwide chairs meeting.
I can speak just briefly to that too. So there are some proposed drafts, or very early preliminary stages, additions in that sense, and I believe they are open for public comment right now. Actually, I'll see if I can dig that up and send that out, if that's something that everyone here feels would be meaningful, not just in our university but everywhere. Supportive comments for that, I think, would be pretty fabulous. I will do the research on that and follow up with everyone.
That would be great, because the more comments that those receive, the more import they have to that committee, and the more likely we are to see that incorporated into ABET, which is a way to get it to happen.
I had a quick question. Well, I guess a question / comment added together, whatever. I was wondering, why are we waiting on the college? In that, are there things that we can do as a department right now to create lasting change? Because I think that there are definitely places that we can work on. And we shouldn't have to wait for the college, like maybe for like the student trainings, because that would be like more financial backing. I understand that, but I think that there's a fair amount of things that we can do as a department to create change in our department now. So I guess, like, what's the reasoning behind waiting for the department and waiting for Dr. Thomas Brown? And what are your thoughts on things that we can do in the next year? I guess I'm curious, you asked us the question of what should JEDI be working on in the next year, but I'm curious, what do you think JEDI should be working on in the next year? So I guess that's a kind of a twofold question.
Am I going to take that one again? I think that there are certainly things that we can do at the department level, and to some extent we are doing them, and we will continue to do them. And we ask questions about things that are very important to you all to help us make decisions about what we should do next year. Some of the things that we're doing are infrastructure. So we've made moves to look at bathrooms and trying to provide some equity there. At the faculty level, we have added and are having discussions about how to formally consider faculty activities to advance JEDI and how that gets included in annual reviews. And we've asked people to add statements about what they've done. So that goes to that being part of our job to do something to advance those efforts. We've spent money on hiring a faculty member to teach some classes. We've added our JEDI moments. I mean, we are doing all these things at all these different levels. I guess I don't see it as, I think that there are lots of little things that we need to be doing right now, and that as those little things add up, they are going to improve the culture and the climate within the department. And as we do that, we will be moving forward. It seems like it's a lot of little steps more than sort of 3 or 4 really big things.
Can I add to that? Yeah, I mean, you heard, a lot of what we're doing is on the website, and you heard Jessica went through what's happening on the website. So I think when I think of the main thing that we we certainly want to hear what the college is interested in and hear what their leadership there think. But the main thing that we've waited on is training for students. And one of the reasons is it just felt like it's bigger than our department. It's the kind of thing that really needs to happen at the college level. And we started looking at people who do trainings, who do Jedi trainings, and none of us had experience with hiring people to do Jedi trainings. And so we did hire people to do those trainings for faculty and staff. For doing it at the college level, again, for doing it at the student level, it felt like if we hired somebody and it went only so-so, we had the potential to be doing more harm than good. We didn't want the department to be formally putting something out there and then have it only go okay. You know, if we do that with faculty and it's only okay, then people get angry at us. Like that's fine with getting angry at us. Like I don't want that to happen. But if we do that with students in kind of the role officially as a department doing it, that felt like a bigger step. And just knowing that the college, that was my personal opinion, knowing that the college was making these steps forward, it felt like the right thing to wait for their leadership and see if they're going to start implementing things college-wide. So that's really kind of the main thing that we've waited on. To your other question about what do we think needs to happen next, I'm sure if you ask other people, you'll get different answers. So I'm a little hesitant to answer that directly, except to say that's kind of one of the purposes of this session. You know, I think the comments that have come here have overlapped with my sense of what needs to happen next year. But we'll receive the feedback we get here and kind of include that in our thinking. And this is not the only conversation, and many conversations for what we want to, think about regrouping and working on next year. There was something in the chat session here about the GRE, and it is right now not permanent because in those conversations, the question that came up is if we drop the GRE, is there something else that would be appropriate to take its place? And so we know there are concerns with the GRE, but at the time the decision was, okay, we can do kind of another temporary, and that's what we've done as another temporary, while we discuss like what structure we want to take its place. And so that's kind of where the conversation is right now.
I'll just add that the grad ed committee has a proposal for that new application. I think we'll vote on it this June. If we don't vote on, I think we have to vote on it this June so that we can implement it for the fall.
And just adding to that the time that has been taken to do that is intentional. It's not just, it's not just that's what happened, but we all wanted to be careful that we didn't eliminate the GRE and replace it with something that was even more biased. Right, we wanted to make sure that we were thoughtful with what we were putting in place. So that's what that committee has been working on.
We have a hand raised. Is that Elise?
It is, and I just want to maybe follow up on the question about proactivity and accountability. So I was just like checking myself again or reviewing the Jedi website, which I think is really great in terms of reporting out what has been done. I think what I'm gathering, and maybe if I'm going to restate my question in terms of what I'm asking for, is what are our goals? Like, what are we looking to achieve? Because right, there's a statement about being held accountable and a feedback form. But I think what if I could maybe synthesize what's being asked for is on the Jedi page, can we see a 3-year goal, a 5-year goal, a 10-year goal for, kind of staking putting a line in the sand and saying in 3 to 5 years, we are going to make sure this is offered to our students, and we are going to make sure we are graduating students who have these competencies, period. And I understand waiting within the next year or two to see if those resources and those components are provided at the college level. But I think it's a separate thing to say, we as a department are going to say that this is what we're going to do in 5 years, and we're going to put it publicly up, and you can hold us accountable to that goal. So I think what we're asking for, or what I am hearing, what I'm asking for, what I hear others asking for is this goal-based process. Because right now it's reporting what we've done, which is great, and I think it's a lot for a single year's sporadic effort. But let's start planning.
So We're in the process of hiring a consultant to help us do some long-range strategic planning for the department. And a lot of that is focused on, JEDI will be a component of that because that is part of what our department wants to accomplish or wants to advance in the coming years. Part of it will also be thinking about how we organize and manage ourselves to accomplish our research and teaching in new ways. But JEDI will certainly be a component of that. And so I think coming out of that, there will be some goals that address that particular topic. And that may be more of what you're looking for, of some concise statements about what we're trying to do. My husband and daughter are leaving in half an hour for softball.
Just adding to that point from Laura, so something else Julian and I have been working on this year is the strategic plan for the college. We are both involved with different parts of that, and an important part of that is JEDI efforts, and I believe that's out for public comment right now. So again, that's a great way to take action and make your voice heard and emphasize that this is important to our community. So we've actually spent a fair bit of time engaging in that effort at the college level. And I think the things that have been proposed there will be useful to our department as well. Because you're right, Elise, and that was something on the student petition of a year ago that we haven't delivered on, which is that ask for a strategic plan. And I think we're now in a position where we can develop that moving forward. I think the past year has been a process of doing a lot of low-hanging fruit, like things that really needed to happen, and understanding what the situation was and educating ourselves. And so now I think we're in a position to move forward more strategically, which I agree is needed. So thanks for that comment.
To bounce off this idea of a strategic plan, I think Stephen had just mentioned that the last sort of strategic plan with using outside consultants for this department was about 7 years ago. A lot of the things that they said in there and recommended are things that we're hearing again today, that we heard again last year, that we heard again and again over time. What exactly, what's going to make this strategic plan different? Are you saying it's the people? Because the people will leave. All of the students in this room won't be here in 7 years unless they're faculty, which may or may not happen. But I know that on the website, I know you've done a ton of work. I know everyone has done a ton of work, and people showing up here care. Thank you all for being here. But we need to actually build structures so that it's not just reliant on individuals or individual groups or leaders, so that it's built in, so that we all learn, and that becomes part of the fabric that we are building, that we want to create. So what is it that's going to make this strategic plan any different?
I think one thing is that we've specifically looked at a couple of consultants who not only provide support for what are the goals, but helping us to figure out how we achieve those goals. And so I think it was the School of Public Health. Is that right, Ted? What we really liked about it was it was okay, here's your goal and here are the steps you're going to take to achieve this goal and about how long it should take to do that. And so you look at it not so much as this is the goal, but this is the process of getting there and who's engaged in that process of getting there. And so it felt really empowering because it's like, oh, I can see myself doing that. So I think that's one thing that that we've been really focused on, is making sure that it's not just a bunch of goals, that it's a bunch of processes that we can use to get there.
Can I add? So just like Laura was mentioning, this is supposed to be an action-oriented strategic plan versus some of the ones we've seen in the past where institutions develop these documents that are just marketing materials. And speaking of strategic planning, I think everyone should take the time to read the college's strategic plan and provide feedback. They're asking for feedback for another like 3 weeks. And so that's a good time. Right now is a good time to read that and provide feedback to them before they finalize the college strategic plan. as well.
A follow-up to this, what does the timeline look like for like bringing in those consultants to help with this? And like, can that be a goal for next year?
Yeah, our goal is definitely to have the contract in place and be working on it next year. Another aspect to that, at least at the sort of department operation management level, is that we have been moving kind of slowly, but we've been moving slowly to create policies that we can vote on and say, this is our policy. And so that makes it something that we are going to continue to do until until another group of faculty at some period of time votes in a new policy. And it's kind of like the GRE, where I have to say, I said, I don't want to vote to drop the GRE until we're voting on dropping the GRE to adopt something new. And so that we've got this is our new holistic application process. And this is what we're going to do until the graduate education committee does some more research and figures out something they want to do differently well in the future, hopefully. And so and that process of having something that we're willing to adopt for a long period of time just takes a while to do.
What is the motivation to replace the GRE? I understand that it's a first pass, right? Every grad student that's here understands that they needed to get a certain score to get a second look from somebody else. But if we've all agreed that there's no correlation between a student's success and a GRE score, why would we want to replace it with anything? Why, what did we do this year when we didn't use the GRE to accept students? And why can't we continue with that until a holistic admission process has been developed? I mean, why keep it at all if it's not adding?
We didn't require it last year, and we won't require it for students applying in November. It was my decision, and I decided that I didn't want to have this vote on dropping it and then only have replacing it with our current application, because I didn't think that was a very good application. So part of it was, I want a new application process. And when we have a new application process that doesn't include the GRE, then we'll adopt it. And we've essentially got one that we need to vote on. And I think we're going to vote on it. We have to vote on it in June. I've seen drafts of it, and it's a series of questions that require a written response that address a number of different topics. So I think that issue should be done at our June faculty meeting, or resolved.
I just want to say I really appreciate the questions, and this probably won't surprise you, but I'll just mention it. These questions are conversations that we have all the time, right? So like the plan that we had in place is many years ago. And so then we had a conversation, should we start by coming up with a plan? And we kind of had more of a bias towards action. And so the thought was like, instead of, because that's what, a 30-page document, that probably rarely gets read. Like instead of spending months coming up with a 30-page document, we thought, okay, our first action needs, like, where are the low-hanging fruits? What can we do that's action oriented? And yes, we do need to have a document like that. But a document like that causes less change sometimes. And so it was not our first step. And the question about the GREs, okay, should we just drop the GREs? Like that, we had multiple questions about that. And as Laura mentioned, the idea is like, okay, well, we probably want something else to replace it. It's not just a one-step process. And so we have dropped the GREs, but it's not permanent until there's kind of like, as Laura mentioned, a more holistic replacement. So most of this is just say like, thank you for the questions you're asking us. I really appreciate them. And they're exactly the right questions, and they're the conversations that on all these issues that we're trying to figure out.
I have another question unless someone else wants to give it a stab. Are there any plans or ideas or discussion around recruiting students, more students, and I focus on students because there are way more students than faculty and staff, to this type of work while we are trying to build the community and the culture that we actually want to see. Everyone in this room, I think I know the vast majority of the people in this room, and it's the same people showing up. And a few of them are graduating, and a few more of us will graduate again in a few years. So to get back to, I can't remember if it was Elise or Stephen or somebody else's sustainability question. Julian, you've asked for volunteers for people that feel really gung-ho, and yes, there are issues with that, that feel really motivated to take on a project of their own. This is in addition to all of their responsibilities as students, potentially their responsibilities as an instructor, potentially their responsibilities as a researcher, and all the stuff that they do outside of academic life. How are we going to bring more people into this space, this work, not just this little topic, but the thing that we want to see permeating every aspect of what we do?
What do you think? What are your thoughts on that? You don't have to answer, that's fine. I mean, I preface that by saying, like, if you just want to vote, that's fine. The thing that put that in my mind was the book club. And we've kind of asked a few people here and there about the book club, and like, it's not clear that like people will actually do that. So that the book club was really the one that was like, okay, if you actually want to get involved in the book club, that means added, you know, reading, who wants to do that. That's, Michelle will put that one in my mind.
I'm sorry, was I supposed to answer that? I think that's an excellent question, Michelle, and I don't know. I mean, I think that is, it was easy in my mind to say, okay, well, let's make it, especially for students, let's make it a little easier by providing a stipend, which means that I know it's a token, but at least it's a token. But the next step of how do we recruit students into the department and into these activities, in some ways is just showing, I think, to a large group of people that this is important to us and that we're doing these things. And there are these opportunities if you come to civil and environmental engineering at the University of Washington to take some of these classes and to hear some of this content and to do research that addresses some of these topics, because that's going to bring in students for whom this is part of what they want a civil engineer to be and a civil engineer researcher to be. And so it's going to be, it's not just sort of an add-on to what they're already doing, but it's kind of part of their career, their profession. But I am more than open to hearing whatever ideas you all have about how to do that, because I don't know, it's hard.
I would just add to that to say that one of the things that I see in some of the responses we've been getting from people is that quite a few people would like a stronger community within our department. And, you know, that's certainly exacerbated by the pandemic. It's been really hard for everybody over the past year and a half to do that. But I think more community building, more getting to know each other goes a way in terms of showing people why things are important and why we stand up for each other and what it means to be somebody different than who we are. And so it's easy to, you know, change culture, but we coming up when we all return in the fall, right? We've had sort of a sudden shock to the system that gives us that chance. And I don't know what that up to. Certainly, you know, more social gatherings, there has to be more to it than that. But I think building that community is going to be a really meaningful part of that work going forward. I really appreciate that comment. It's important if we want to call people in to that conversation. That's where we need to go.
Can I add to that? I agree with what you both just said. One question that came up today that I think is important that I want to kind of hang on to and not let fall is around technical competency. So I think previously we've had, you know, someone asked, like, you know, what are your goals? Previously, I think culture of the department has been our primary goal. That's been like our North Star. You know, the culture of the department needs to be better than what it was when we did this listening session a year ago. And so making the culture more open and inviting, you know, that's really been our North Star. And one of the questions today was what's a technical competency around JEDI that we want all the graduates of the department to have. And so thanks for raising that question. I think that's one we, you know, as we think to what do we want to do next year, putting something behind that question, how do we kind of frame that question for our department is an important one. So I just want to call that one out.
I mean, so I think synthesizing a few things that have come up or what I've heard, right? So Michelle's question just now was a much better articulated version of what I was trying to say earlier. So having had some time and space to process that, and based on kind of what Julian pointed out is like, there are things that need to be sustained long-term, but there are also like big one-off like pushes up front. So I think what might be helpful is to have some clear, again, I'm going to go back to the goal setting thing, but a clear understanding of what it is that we need to make big pushes on right now. And frankly, I think, Jessica, I agree with you that community is really important. And maybe what I'm reading from that answer is that like growing the number of people who are passionate about this so we can perhaps share the load a bit more. I think that that's important. And I think that in order to make it like there seems to be a widespread recognition that we have some big changes to make, right? We have a big chunk of work to do. So if we're going to do that, you know, building community and spreading that load, sharing that load is going to take a lot of time. But if we want to get it done sooner, perhaps there are ways to shift incentive structures around. I mean, what it really comes down, in my mind, is incentive structures and what are the time expectations being placed on any certain individuals. And I think even if we are able to share the load, there still are going to have to be one or two people taking point on this. And I want to be very clear that I really appreciate all the work that, you know, Jessica and Julian have put in this year. And I know that they also have full-blown professorial expectations. I don't see that as a sustainable way to continue moving forward with big pushes of work and like department-wide shifts. Placing that on two professors seems like way too much to me, 2 professors and a handful of students. And I know I'm oversimplifying and I don't want to discredit people, but I do want to be very clear that I feel like some shifts of expectations could go a long way in freeing up time and space to get these things done faster.
I mean, along those lines, there's also been discussion of hiring staff who can help with some of this. And ideally that is organized at the college level so that we maybe don't need an entire person who's working 40 hours a week to support civil and environmental engineering, because there is still a lot of this that needs to be done by faculty and students. But I think that is one way of relieving some of the burden, is to hire some staff who can support this. I think your point of sustainability is really important, and the point that we need to have a set of clear objectives on an annual basis that we are working towards, that we think are achievable, and hold ourselves accountable to achieving those goals. And that, my understanding is that is in part what we were looking for as people responding today is, okay, well, what are our goals for next year, and what's our path to achieve those goals, and how are we going to hold ourselves accountable to accomplishing those? So we will do that. And we will look to the college to provide some support on some of the educational issues, and then have further discussion on adding additional staff that can support those activities.
Elise, I want to say thank you. That's heard. Your comment is heard. And thanks also, like many other people are stepping up also, they're just not presenting right now. Which I know you mentioned that also, but I just want to repeat that, like many thanks to people, several from on this call.
I have sort of a follow-up, because you mentioned like a possibility would be.
I saw Annie raise her hand. Can I?
Oh, sorry.
And then Stephen.
Yeah, I just had a more general question. So I know that CEE, like I saw an email come around for like award nominations for people that are like active in the department. But are there other ways that we could be acknowledging like positive Jedi behaviors on a smaller level so that students or faculty that are acknowledging and taking like a daily step, because those are more routine behaviors that students are experiencing?
Thank you. I'll just take that as a suggestion. That's a really nice one. Thank you. I see we're kind of running to the end of time. Stephen, do you want to say something? I appreciate it, dominating.
My comment can be an email, so I'll reserve my time for anyone else and email you.
What is going to happen with the spreadsheet of votes?
So we will certainly download it. In fact, I've already done so to make sure that it's archived. We're going, of course, to look at the items, and like as with all of this sort of research, right? We've got items where lots of people think something's important. That's a priority, but just because some things have smaller response rates doesn't mean it's unimportant. So we're going to go through there and try to find some things that are important, actionable, and put them hopefully into a plan for next year and part of the strategic plan that I think we all agree that we need. I don't see any reason why it couldn't be archived on our website, just like our more recent poll everywhere responses and this recording. I don't think there's any privacy concerns there, so we can certainly do that. Otherwise, you can certainly send me a note if you want to have a look at the file that I just downloaded.
I mean, it gets used, right? The survey responses, when Jessica and I talk with each other and with other people, as we have over the last year, a lot of times we would start that by saying, hey, here's the survey responses. Let's talk about this. You know, what does this imply? What do we need to do differently? And it's just kind of an opening for the various conversations that we have within the department and within the college or with people from outside. I think the same thing is true for these ideas, right? We'll look for what gets upvoted, what ideas are there, and we'll include these in conversations. A lot of times when you start a conversation, I'll be like, okay, here's some ideas here. You know, we're meeting with this group of people. You know, here's some things we saw here. What do you think of this? How can we make this happen? You know, that's kind of conversations are a lot of how change happens, and that's what this information feeds into very much so, very actively. Okay, we're a half hour past, and we have many people who are by definition enthusiastic and engaged in this topic because you've stayed here longer, and I really appreciate that. And I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Laura, should we turn the floor back over to you? You're muted.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Should we turn the floor back over to you?
Yes. Thank you, everybody, for your participation and your comments and the discussion. It's really helpful to us to have these conversations, and all the input is of concern to us, and I think it helps shape where we're going. So thank you, and have a good last couple of weeks of the quarter, and we will look forward to hearing from you, talking with you, et cetera, as the months progress towards next fall. And plan on having a plan for JEDI activities during the 2021-22 academic year. Jessica, Julian, can I talk to you for just a minute?
Yeah, everybody, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate it. We appreciate the feedback and look forward to continuing to change and improvement.